Welcome, welcome, welcome. Da 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 da. All right, we're good to go on Facebook. And it looks like we have Sarah in the house.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. You know why I'm laughing? Because I know it's afternoon over here and it's morning over there.
I know. It's crazy, isn't it?
It's amazing. Someone just popped in. How are you, Coach Sarah?
I am so good for this conversation. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, that's good. And it was funny. I just clicked the invite button. I said, I wonder, did you see a join me kind of button? I don't know if
I did.
you did. Did you click that button?
I clicked the join button. I did. Yeah. The Facebook button just took me to this one, so I'm not sure that I'm on Facebook at the same time.
Uh,
But the
uh
joys of technology, my darling. The joys of technology. We'll figure it out.
I know because on Facebook I see me, but I don't see you. So I don't know if I have to. Can you go to my and ask me to join or something? Is
Let's.
that it? But right now we're both we're I see you obviously and talking to you on Instagram. And hello, there's a coach just joined us. She said, "Good afternoon, ladies." I don't know if you can see the comments.
I can see the comments. Good afternoon. Thank you
Yeah.
for joining us.
Yes, absolutely. Wow. I am, and I'm on my regular profile that we're friends on Facebook, so that's where you should be, because I know we both have separate. We have a page and a profile, but I just wanted you to know I'm over here live on Facebook. Anybody out there on Instagram? We're just going to be starting in a few seconds. I just wanted to make sure of Coach Sarah, who is really has joined from Australia, if you can believe that. Oh, so exciting. So I just want to make sure that for the Facebook people on that platform can also see you. I don't know if you need to ask me to join on Facebook to my live because I'll happily join,
Okay, let's have a look.
Yeah. And I think as soon as you see my live, you can actually request on there.
Yeah, I can see you live on my computer, but I can't
A re-
request to join it.
no. Just make sure you and I where you're connecting from where we're friends, because you have a
Yeah,
page versus a profile. So I want to make sure because
yeah,
that's
I am. I'm on my personal one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, well, hello everybody. Hello everybody. Hello. You see my live on there. Anyway, welcome. More welcomes. More welcomes. We have. Let's see. I don't know. We got a few people in the house, and we're gonna wave. I know you're still looking at. Uh, so you don't see anywhere where you can join me. Request, huh?
No, when I clicked the join live, it just sent me to the Instagram page, which is here. So it's not letting me in, my lovely. I don't know why.
Can you go to your Facebook profile? I mean,
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm on.
pull up the Facebook, and you see me live on Facebook.
I can see you live on Facebook, but it's not letting me join you.
What? Hey, why
Uh,
not? Aw.
yeah, but that's okay. We can just do it on Instagram, and you
All right.
you can have a beautiful chat by yourself on Facebook.
Oh,
It's all good.
great. Yeah, because I got a lot of people that they don't follow on Instagram, so they're like, oh, okay, and I want them to be able to hear what you have to say. So there we are. I don't know why though. That's amazing. Okay, so anyway, I'm Toye Johnson-Vincent, Coach Toye, aka No Sugar Coating Coach. If you're joining in um, on Facebook and you're only seeing me, I can tell you for a fact that Coach Sarah Willoughby is in the house on the Instagram and page. So I think what happens too is that this may actually be shared too. Let's see what we. Oh, wait a minute. I think we have a winner. I think this is what I'll be able to do. Da 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 da. I just shared it to the feed on Facebook. So We'll see what happens. All right. But anyway, thank you so much. Someone has joined. You familiar with a few people because they may be connected to you on here, Coach Sarah.
So one of my coaches lives in Australia. Wonderful. Love the Australian connection.
Yes, yes. Well, good afternoon, everybody in U.S. Right over here in U.S. Eastern Standard Time, and even if you are in the U.S. where I just happen to be, um, it doesn't mean that we're actually on the same time because somebody may be on Central Time here. I mean, you know what I mean. We have Midwest here and everything. And Coach Sarah Willoughby, so I'm so happy and excited to meet you. And then, come up with this idea to say, hey, why don't we just do something live? I mean, coaches, authors, speakers do it all of the time. And a lot of times, including myself, you feel like you're just talking to yourself. It's kind of interesting. But, we know that we have people on other platforms as well. Invites went out on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, which is where we were planning to do. And a lot of times, sometimes you should just stick with one platform and just do it all there and continue. So this is going to get better, folks. And by the way, and I'm currently based in the greater Atlanta area. And for those of you who may notice me moving my head around a bit, I'm just moving from camera to camera. But my home state and town is New York. So if there are any New Yorkers in the house, shout out to all of the New York people in the house. Born in Queens, Jamaica Hollis area of Jamaica, Queens, as well as raised in Brooklyn, Crown Heights section. So hello, just to let you know, the area, a lot of the Caribbean Festival, I lived in that neighborhood where every year the movie Bob Marley is currently out right now. So that's pretty popular. And going through the festival as a little girl, they used to come down our street. So that's the area. If you know, you know, right? So about me, one more thing. I am a motivational speaker. I now say that I'm an event speaker instead of keep saying I'm motivational. I mean, I want to motivate people. Don't get me wrong. And I know Coach Sarah, when she introduces herself, she will tell you about her background and how she motivates and inspire, but most importantly, transform. And I'd love to hear about that. But yeah, I'm a speaker, and HR is my primary background, human resources, talent acquisition, matching that wonderful talent to major corporations for many years, both on a contract basis and full time. Segueing into corporate training and nonprofit, but just training in general on career development, personal growth and development, organizational development, and I would like to get more into leadership. So because it's really helpful in organizations. But today we're going to be addressing life changes, and I love it because Coach Sarah, I got to give her all the credit with that because she really came up with the title, and I loved it. Life changes, grief and loss. And I sort of added the resilience because you can deal with grief and loss, but it's how do you come out on the other side, when there's a loss. And from there, I'm going to just throw it right on over to, let's see, hold on. I'm going to throw it over to you, Coach Sarah Willoughby from Australia.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I just want to say good morning to Liz. I can see one of my beautiful friends and colleagues, Liz, is watching. So thanks for joining. So I'm Sarah. I'm originally from the UK. I have been living in beautiful Melbourne, Australia for the last 14 years. And I am excited for this conversation. I love supporting, empowering women to go on that deep dive self-discovery journey back to self, journey to self-love and transformation from the inside out. Grief, loss, life changes is a big topic for me personally, but also professionally. Whenever I write articles, whenever I talk about grief, that's where I get the most engagement out of all the work that I do. So I know that it's a topic that we need to talk about more. and not just to isolate grief to the grief and of a loss, the loss of a loved one. It's actually more than that. It's grief through all the different life stages that we go through. So I'm excited for this conversation with you this morning, and I know that you have a very personal story through your own grief, and I wondered whether that was a good place to start with you sharing your experience of losing your daughter.
Yeah, thank you for that. I got to tell you, amazingly, hardly get a chance to actually hone in on that particular loss in my life, and to those Facebook viewers, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Most of you, because of my content, I have been able to share. I have been able to share throughout the years what I have gone through. And like you'll hear a lot of people say, well, why do why do you talk about it? That's got to be really painful, right? Because most of the time it is very difficult for anyone just to lose someone in their lives through whatever the cause of death was. But let me just start here. Yes, I do have a personal journey, and I say journey because as long as I live, there's no way that I can forget what I've gone through. And most people, any medical professionals out there, and I hope there's some that may just, hey, by the way, whoever's on here, please share this, and you can pull me up on Facebook too, as well as Sarah, Coach Sarah. But what I wanted to say is that it's a lot that people don't understand, that when we do talk about grief, and depending on who the person is that you lost, in this case, as Coach Sarah has asked me and talked about with my daughter. Now, any medical professionals will tell you the loss of a child, period, without a doubt, is the most traumatic loss that there is. That's really what medical professionals will tell you, and they stand by it. And there's a reason for that. And of course, I'm not a clinical psychologist or psychologist and any of those things, but I have, talked to many of those people in that field and listened to them. And believe it or not, when it comes to the loss of a child, it seems to, it kind of gives someone a jolt. So, but I have been over the years, been able to start to talk about it even more, because it does no good with me keeping it inside. And this happened many years ago. Viewers, this has happened to me many years ago. You will see me on Instagram. You see me on Facebook. You may see me out and about at events. You may have even met me at an event. You may be a friend of mine for 40 years. But you may not know, unless you're a really close friend, that I indeed had a daughter when I was in my 20s. And I just keep thinking of the roaring 20s because I was moving fast, all of that. And that relationship resulted in a beautiful child, and her name was Kiana with a Q. So I said, if you say her name, say her name. There's a song out there, say my name, say my name. Well, I say my daughter's name, but she's in my heart. So I understand that. And my mind and my heart and her family, her father's family and my family, and all of the people that were around me in my 20s would have been aware that this happened to me. I think the most difficult part is no one knows what to say. Even after all of these years, all of the birthday anniversaries, I may post something because I don't want to forget the dates, which I never really can forget it. But when time goes on, you say, wait a minute, today is, oh my goodness. And I have to tell you, a lot of that is telling you that you're starting to heal, or you're still in the healing process psychologically. Because, the dates will come, but you think you could never forget, but you'd be surprised how you can go on about your day, and then you say, whoa, wait a minute, today is the birthday anniversary, today is the death anniversary. So those are the two things. One other thing, people are always curious about it, and I always say it anyway, because you know, my daughter passed away, and she was again toddler age. She was only like 2 years old. So just shy of being able to say the mommy thing, you know. So I just hearing things, I have to remind myself, what did she sound like? What did she sound like? What did she do? Um, but she actually was born with a congenital heart disease. And so as a result of the obvious multiple surgeries, being the last one, she did not survive that. So, and then even it can go deeper than that, but just put it in this context. We just had to make a final decision regarding my daughter. And I'll say our daughter because her father was very instrumental. We weren't married, and we don't have that relationship anymore. But he's was very loving to his daughter, her father's family, and all that. So, and we still can say hello today, which is good, and we both went through that. But anyway, so that's what happened to me, and I just think that it's so important that people do talk about it, but not necessarily that you're sitting on the psychiatrist's couch. I mean, you may have to just deal with some things yourself, and so that's why when I talk about the loss of my daughter, but that's not the only loss. What hit me further in even up to recent years is then I lost my mother, and she was only in her 50s. So, again, to autoimmune disease. And then as I look at it, then in the past 6 years, 5 years, yeah, basically, I lost my best friend and to breast cancer. So I was there, literally, I was there in the hospital on her last day. So, in moments. So, went into the hospital, but when I came out, so that these are the things that when people talk about, well, how do you go on, and we can talk more about that, but I'd love to hear from you, and then maybe we can pick it up on how can they move on, how can they be resilient through maybe their worst nightmare, including grief and loss.
Absolutely, I'd love to share, and thank you for sharing so vulnerably your story about your loss. So thank you for that. I think for me, the biggest grief that I have experienced was actually my journey through secondary infertility when I was trying to complete my family. So I already had a beautiful little boy, and I wanted to have another child, and it just didn't go how I planned it to go. And it was the first time in my life that I realized that I was not in control of anything, and that I felt like I had failed. And that journey took me through many years of loss and grief and trauma, and I had multiple miscarriages. And the doctors got to a point where they said, if you want to complete your family, you need to go through IVF.
Okay.
Which I did, and I was living in the UK at the time. I went over to Norway to go through this very routine procedure that millions of women globally have been through. And my body didn't like the drugs, and my body decided that this was going to be the big kick up the bum, and it was the event that propelled me into the life that I have now. But at the sort of pinnacle of the story, I guess, I was lying in intensive care, gasping for every breath with an enlarged heart, my body full of fluid, and I watched my son walk out of the hospital doors to go back to the UK with his grandma, and I didn't know whether I'd ever see him again. And I realised in that moment that I wasn't just grieving for the life that I may never have. I was grieving for the fact that I had lived this life that had lacked authenticity, that I hadn't been the real me. I had allowed fear to stop me from making beautiful changes in my life that were necessary. So this was the biggest gift in my life, was this journey to complete my family. After I went through IVF, I fortunately recovered because there wasn't anything the doctors could do to stop that deterioration. And I returned to my life, but I decided that that was the starting point of a new life for me. And we went through the process of emigrating over to Australia and beginning a new life. And even though that was exciting and it helped me to reinvent myself, I guess, and to really be who I was.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I was leaving my family behind. I was, and then came regret and decisions later around, I've lost both of my parents in the last 6 years, my mum very recently, and I didn't have that time with them. So for me, grief has sort of impacted me in many different ways, and grief through moving countries as well. I've lived in many different countries, and there's always been a level of grief of and isolation and all of those feelings. So I think for me, when we understand this is what's happening, when we understand that we're grieving, particularly through life changes, that's when we can actually start to heal that. And I would love to hear from you in terms of how you have healed your grief in your life.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you used the word filled, correct?
Filled?
Did you say the word filled? How did you fill? Fill like as in fill in? I didn't. Is that what you said?
I'm not sure.
Or monitor.
Actually, I was in my flow.
I think.
How did you? No, I think I said how did you heal?
Okay, got it.
Did you?
Yeah.
How did you move through it?
Yeah, and whether it was heal or feel, I mean, we have to do so much when it comes to grief. And by the way, folks, for those of you who really are listening, or you'll see this on the replay, please put hashtag replay, because Coach Sarah is really dropping gems here from her life, and graciously, and many people. I'll be honest with you, a lot of people don't even really, they can't muster up the courage to even talk about something so deep, let alone to, tell it to the world. So, and that's talking to Coach Sarah, who happens to be an author, correct?
I am an author. I share my story in my book, Infertility Saved My Life. So
yes,
thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and the thing is, when Coach Sarah just asked me, how did I actually, heal, or what steps, as I'm looking at two cameras today between Facebook and here. I got to tell you, the healing, it's a process. And I think people forget that, they say, well, somebody passed away. Maybe it was their mom or their guardian, because we weren't all raised with our parents. Some of us were raised with one parent. Some of us had a relationship with the mom but didn't have one with the dad. I know how that is because I did, come through divorced parents. But I still had a relationship with my father, although now I look back at it, wish it could have been even better, especially towards the end of his life when I didn't see him very much. So, and I own up to that, and I know the reasons. But my point is that healing is a process like anything else. It's not where you say, okay, and sometimes some of us, and I think I tried to do this, not necessarily with my daughter's passing, but it probably was more with my mom and my father passing. And the two reasons, I think, is because I wasn't in the same city. And then for my father, I wasn't even in the same state, and he was West Coast, we're East Coast. It was a lot of things. When I think about it now, I said, well, I can just push that. I know, he's gone, and it'll get better eventually. I've been through this before. It can't be any worse than what I've gone through with my daughter, right? But at some point, no, you feel the aloneness. So I think the healing for me was more about, I needed to be by myself for a minute, because you have to process grief, at least get it for you first, because everyone around you, it's fantastic. They'll ask you, how can I help you? How can I help you? I didn't even know how to help myself. So, for me to reach out and ask, I knew there were friends, at that time, and my mom was still alive and everything. But everybody, my grandmother was alive. It just, people who I really, really loved. And, even on my daughter's father's side, they were, all, very, very gracious, and came to my aid whenever needed. There's no question about that. But I got to tell you, sometimes I just wish I honestly, I just didn't want to deal with anything. I just kept like, this can't be happening. I was in denial. I was basically like, this can't be happening. I'm in my 20s. I'm an educated woman. And that's what it's telling you. It goes across boundaries. It doesn't care. It didn't care. Grief, the loss of my daughter, didn't care that I had a college degree. Did not care at all. It just happened. And so when I had to, healing came through talking with up to other people when I decided to talk to other people. And one of the things too that I remember the first time, and you might find this interesting, but I never actually went to get help. When I say help, meaning anything psychologist or counseling, none of that. I just didn't go, and I'm still here. I'm still thriving after all those years. But what I know now is you probably should have talked to someone. I was in my 20s. Now I understand. Oh, this is the most traumatic loss, period, according to psychologists, psychiatrists, and other medical professionals, is the loss of a child. Are you serious? You didn't go to see anybody? No. I remember walking past a church, and I remember feeling the anxiety of what was going on. Eventually, I went back to work and all of that, and then I went back to work, and people at the job, they were talking about, my loss, and they kept asking me, how do you feel? Oh, I mean, you must, and I know they meant well, but that was crushing me right there, because I still hadn't embraced it. And yes, I have faith, and I went to a church. Wasn't a church that I go to normally. I lived up in Boston at the time. People out there, shout out to Boston, is Northeastern University as well, for listening. And I remember walking past a church. I says, okay. It wasn't my church. It wasn't in a denomination, anything that I belonged to. I just knew something was telling me, you need to talk to someone today. And that's how I felt at the time. And when I walked in, I said, well, this will be the first time that I'll talk about it, and no one will just judge you. You can cry if you want. I just felt I would be in a safe environment to talk about my feelings. Now, mind you, my daughter probably had only been gone less than 90 days. And I'm just kind of walking around, in a cloud, going my normal things. Just like normal, and it wasn't normal. And when I went into that particular church organization, a huge church, in the South End in Boston, and I just walked down. It was a beautiful sunny day, and I said, I walk in, I opened the door, and I asked whoever was there, administrator, I says, oh, is there someone I can speak to? Just kind of like I'm going on an interview. And and they said, sure, you want to speak to the pastor so-and-so. He said, he's in a meeting, but he'll be out shortly. Can you wait? As I was waiting there, I wanted to run, Coach Coach Sarah. I didn't want to be there because I said, oh, no, maybe I don't. I kept saying to myself, well, you need it. No. And, you're just talking yourself out of getting help, even if it was just to talk. But I'm glad I did. I waited, and then when he finally came out and we talked briefly, I says, well, and he said, are you a member? And I says, no. I'm just kind of passing through, but if you don't have time, that's fine. I'm in my 20s now, and I just lost my daughter, so that's 90 days. And he says, well, you can, come on, whatever you want to say, you can say. And I told him, I said, well, I lost my daughter, and it hasn't been that long, and I just feel like, oh, when is this gonna, what he was trying to explain to me, that's grief. That's the that hits you. But it will get better. So I think he was trying to tell me it will, and what you believe and all that. So I said, okay, thank you. And but of course he invited me to come back on, the Sunday service and everything. And I just remember saying, I knew I wasn't going back there, but at least it was the beginning of someone telling me to my face that wasn't a family member, they weren't a friend, and they were able to share with me some knowledge about what I'm going through and what it might be like at this age. So the key to all of this is, if you need help, even if you think you don't, you really should talk to someone. I wouldn't tell anybody just do like I did, because um, year after year, that's when you start to see the breaking down, the emotional side that you didn't deal with anyone else. You kept it to yourself. No, I'm good. I'm working. Great. Making some money. Great. Young woman. Yeah, great. Partying it up like I don't know what. Great. Fantastic. Giving events in Boston and whatever. And no problem. And here we are, many years later, as a full grown adult. Still, on some days, I'm like a marshmallow. you know? So that is part of my story and beginnings of healing, and then eventually just reading books and listening to other people. And then I figured I'm not alone. I said, are you kidding me? Someone else lost their child, and oh, you mean people say they lost their mom, their dad, their grandpa, their this, their nana, and everything else. But the loss of a child, very different.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think for me, the thought of losing my children, particularly after I've been through so much to have them, is just at times it does cripple me. I don't stay in that space of dwelling on it. But if somebody said to me, what's the worst thing you can imagine that could happen, it would be that. So I can't begin to imagine the journey that you've been on. And as you say, grief is a journey. Mm-hmm. It is different for each of us, and how we heal is different for each of us. I think for me, what helped me immensely and still helps me is nature, is going outdoors and just breathing and watching sunset, watching sunrise, standing under the night sky and just being, not doing, and allowing myself just to be still.
Just to be still.
Just to be still. Because in the stillness, that's where we find the answers to all our questions. That's where we really do such beautiful healing. And nature is free, and for a lot of us, it is on a doorstep in some capacity. And if you can't get outdoors, then bring plants indoors. There's ways to help ourselves that are really beautiful, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for my connection with nature. I live very close to many beautiful beaches, and I have gum trees in my garden, and I feel incredibly blessed for that. Wow. It's my go-to whenever I'm in a head funk. I just go outside and breathe, whatever I'm going through.
Yeah, and that's a whole that's a big topic too. Obviously, the IVF and what people are going through. There's just it's a huge topic. Right now, people are talking about it even more so, and not everyone's successful when it comes to IVF, because I don't know, there is a stat, or was a stat, about 20% of people that go through it. It's only about 20% that are successful. So, but in terms of just the loss, when I think about it, as when we talked about the loss, and you and I talked about this off camera in a different meeting. I'm just trying to make sure. Let's see how we're. No, okay. All right, just want to make sure how this is going. So, when I think about different loss, and you and I talk, we have similar something with HR. I think your background, you do have an HR background.
Yes.
Yeah.
HR for 10 years.
For 10 years, and I was doing it longer than that. Oh my goodness, I'm not even going to age myself. Forget about this, Coach said. Yeah, Coach, you know what Coach said? Well, let's just move on to something else. But yeah, when I think about it in terms of contractually as well as full time, and which I said in my intro, and I think back now, I said, you know what about grief and loss? It affects everyone differently. There are no two people, I'm going to look right into the Facebook camera. There are no two people that grieve the same. None. Okay? So there is no right or wrong. Even I'm saying today that I had never really went to seek professional help. I don't even think maybe my family wouldn't even have known that. They, other than my mom, who probably said, hey, you need to go somewhere. But I didn't you really do it. I just didn't do it. And I don't know why I didn't do it. I just think maybe it was the way I was raised. I was just strong, coming out of that single parent. Ultimately, I did and was raised in a single parent home. And my mom used to say, hey, do what you need to do, get it done. Very New Yorker. um, you know, and that was it. Do what you need to do. So sometimes, even in families, the way grief is addressed is different. Oh, grandpa's gone. Now, you knew grandpa was sick all these years. Stop asking about grandpa, grandma. You know they're gone. You don't know what goes on in people's houses, in their lives. So, again, depending on how you were raised, you may deal with grief and loss differently. And as we also, segue, even the loss of my daughter, which still and will always sting. It's like basically, even though she succumbed to heart disease at a toddler age, I said, well, my daughter was stronger than I was because she had to go through all of that. Yes, she had people around her that loved her and hugged her and kiss and love on her and all of that on both sides, my family and the father's family. But the reality is, at the end of the day, she's gone, but you're still here and you have to live. You have to find a way. And I put it in resilience because I talk a lot about resilience, and that's what brings me to always talking about it. Like, look, you know how you'll tell somebody, now, if you've been through this, you can probably get through that. If you've been through this, because I'm telling you right now, there is nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing. Facebook, Instagram, there's nothing that can sting more deeply than the loss of my daughter, period, as it stands. So, because I've dealt with grief and loss from, best friend. And as a matter of fact, and when I did make that, when I talked about it earlier, about losing my dear friend and being there on the day she passed away in a hospital bed, seeing her for the very last time. She was one of four, I think I was one of four roommates because I had four college roommates in total. I went to Northeastern, which is a co-op school in Boston, Massachusetts. And so it's really a 5-year co-op program. And within that, I'm pretty sure, I think I had a total of four roommates. And I've lost 3 over the years. One way back when, and it's just incredible for different reasons. 2 were actually really, they were sick. 2 of them from cancer, and the other one was an unfortunate accident as a result. So, car accident. But and then I have one more roommate. I know she's on Facebook, and she's a blessing. She's very nice and sweet. I know that. So I just talk through Facebook. But and people say, "What? 3 out of 4 roommates? What? Are you serious?" Yeah. And so when you say, "But you're still here," so my daughter's gone, but I'm still here. So I have to put that message out to people to say, your worst nightmare could come true. And what will you do from there? You can crumble. They can throw a lot of pills down your throat and tell you to, go off into whatever land, just crawl up into that position. Ironically, they call it the fetal position. Or you can you're going to go with it. And I say whatever works for you, because what would work for me may not work for you. I would not advocate not getting some sort of help, at least to be able to talk to somebody. It doesn't have to be a psychiatrist, just a psychologist or a mental health professional, to talk about your grief and your loss and what that could look like for you as you age, because that's where all these memories and it comes up in the anniversaries. That's what I would say to people. That's important. It's important to me, and hopefully by people who will listen to this, whether it's now or on the hashtag replay, they will understand what you went through in your journey. But I want to ask you though, how in terms of healing, did you just have a lot of people around you? And people, if they didn't hear you, just to be clear, you lost a one child?
Three.
Three. Okay.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, I had a single pregnancy and then twins.
okay. Okay. But lived outside of you. That's what I think people are saying. Wait a minute. You're doing IVF and they just to be clear, the two that actually survived.
So I have three living children,
Okay.
and then I lost three children to miscarriage.
To miscarriage. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's going to resonate with a lot of people because, and we just don't talk about that as much. Some people might say it's a stigma, it's shame, it's this and that. But how did you, because of that, how did you sort of get through that? Was that more? Did you lean on your family more when you were going through this, or did you didn't talk about it?
In all honesty, I don't think my family really understood. So, and a lot of friends, even though they had been through it, they'd gone on and had successful pregnancies, so
Okay.
they didn't really understand either, which is why it was a very isolating journey for me, and something that is why I'm very passionate about talking about it now, because as you've already mentioned, there is so much silence, stigma and shame surrounding infertility, even though it impacts 1 in 6 couples globally. Even though we all probably know somebody, even if they don't talk about it, who's been through a miscarriage or is struggling with infertility. So that's why I wrote my book, that's why I speak about it, that's why I share my story. I'm a big advocate for making change in this space because there is so much grief on that journey that we don't talk about and recognize. In terms of how I healed it, in all honesty, if I hadn't have learned meditation, I wouldn't be here. It was meditation that got me through ICU, that got me through my recovery, that helped me stay sane, because I was actually, when I was going through my recovery, it was the room that I was in, the hospital room that I was in, was an abortion clinic as well. So I was watching all these young girls come into the hospital and going through their procedures and I write about it in my book. I won't share too much. It's pretty graphic.
Right. Yeah. No. Not in this.
So I'm not gonna share it here.
Yeah.
But that's the reality of what women experience, and that needs to change. So for me, there were layers of grief, but meditation helped me through that. Meditation saved my life. It changed my life, and it continues to now. Is something that I do every day, and it is as simple as focusing on your breath for 2 minutes, of just being still, of allowing yourself to connect with who you really are, and just breathing. You have all the answers there. So if people are sort of wondering how they can help themselves and they don't want to, as you've mentioned, not everybody wants to go to talk to somebody else. For me, the go-to things that I use every day, meditation and nature, those are just such healing, beautiful forces. And I encourage everybody to find their thing that works for them. And it can be trial and error, and it can be different for each. The other thing I want to mention is for each grief, whether it's somebody you've lost or you're grieving through a life change, whether you've lost a job or you're coming to the end of your career, or even when you've had a baby, you can still grieve for the life that you are no longer living. There are so many different ways to grieve. No two experiences are ever the same, and you might kind of breeze through one or feel like you're breezing through one, and the next one hits you hard. So be gentle with yourself in that process. Be compassionate, be your own best friend, and really look out for yourself, because the relationship you have with you is the only one that's guaranteed, and it is the most important one. And it's only you that can do that deep inside healing work. Only you.
Wow. Tell the audience, what is the name of your book?
So my book is called Infertility Saved My Life.
Okay.
Healing PCOS from the Inside Out. And it is available globally. It's in all major online retailers, both online and global bookstores. And
Is it on Amazon? Can they get it on Amazon?
Yeah. Amazon, Barnes and Noble.
Oh, okay,
Walmart,
okay.
Target.
That is global.
all the places, yeah. And the first part is my memoir, my story. The second part's all the tools, techniques, insight, wisdom that I learned along the way. Things that are helpful for anybody who is going through grief, not just a fertility journey.
Right.
Lots of men have read my book. Lots of people who are not going through a fertility journey have said that it's an inspiring story and they've taken something away from it. So yeah, so thank you.
Wow. I mean, and no, thank you for sharing that. Something is very deep and personal, but someone will hear it. Someone may reach out to you, through your website or what have you, or they may be looking for a transformation coach. I mean, we do that's what the whole point is about coaching. But when we're talking about grief or infertility, it's a different area, and again, I'm not a clinical psychiatrist, psychologist, and my friends and family know that, but I do a lot of coaching and counseling, whatever, but it's normally on the side of career. And one thing that you and I were talking about, and you just brought it up, if we move into this area, before we, wrap these things up, when we talk about loss, we've talked about today, for those of you that may have just joined us, or you'll be listening to this, or you just tuned in, say, what are they talking about? Grief. I know it's grief and loss. Yes, we both had our own different journeys on grief and loss. If you're human, you're probably you understand that it's not a one-day thing. I can assure you, in my 20s, I am not the same woman. I repeat, I am not the same woman that I was in my 20s. So how I deal with things now, understanding what loss, asking why me, mad at the world, this couldn't happen to me, and I have no other children. So that is where most of my struggle came from. So there are many women out there like me, I get it. But there are many people that will have to go through this. They don't know it yet because it hasn't happened yet, but they will have to go through one, or whether it's something like what happened to me, or maybe it's something that happened to you. But that's why we have to try to support each other more so. But I also wanted to make sure that people understood, in my line of coaching and speaking, it really, and I talk more about career development, and like I said, organizational development, employee development, personal growth and development is my specialty. And when I look at it, we talk about loss all the time. We think about us just passing away. Someone passed away. What was your relationship with your mom? What was your relationship with your father? If indeed either one of them were in your life. Because sometimes I've met people and they say, well, I didn't have a relationship with my mother. Could care less. I wasn't raised by my father. I don't know. I didn't go to the service, and all of these things. So that's why there's no judgment. That's why we can't and shouldn't really judge people on how they grieve. But if you notice someone that doesn't seem themselves, you really they may not like it, but if you're a family and a really good friend and you care about them, you're going to have to find a way to ease it in, to say, hey, you might want to look at getting some kind of help, some sort of assistance. Just talk to somebody, because you can only help them so far. And then last but not least, on the loss, there's also some people are still coming in. We like it. I mean,
my beautiful daughter who I was just talking about, she was the one that took forever to come into this world, and she's just joined, so that's very special. Bless her, she's 13. So.
Oh, okay. Well, hello and welcome all the way from the U.S. How are you? I'm Coach Toye, no sugarcoating coach, and normally I don't sugarcoat it, and I gave myself that name, and that's one of the reasons. Even if I'm doing the wrong things, and it's something that I realize, I shouldn't have said this, or I shouldn't have done that over my life. but I have to come back. And by the way, I got the whole no sugar coating thing because that's just the way I was raised. My mother just, she didn't sugarcoat. So, I mean, and I'm not the only son. I have two siblings, okay, and brother and a sister. Older brother, younger sister, so I'm in the middle. But we were raised by the same woman, and if they were listening and ever hear this, they'll understand. Now they say, oh, so that's why you said no sugar coating. But the other part of that is being diabetic type 2, so the no sugar part. But realistically, and where I was, yeah, born and raised in New York, we just don't take no stuff from them. But I wanted to say, when there's loss, I want people to think about this even before we even close the broadcast. There are different types of loss, but you can grieve a lot, just like you mentioned earlier, Coach Sarah, because you can be a loss of a job, loss of a relationship, a divorce or separation or what have you. You can be separated from your own children, you know. There's so many things going on in the world today. I'm not really surprised by anything that you see on the TV, right? But the point is that a loss is a loss, and you have to understand and try to figure it out. But you shouldn't always have to figure it out by yourself, because there are people out there now that can help. You don't have to stay silent, because you lost your child, your daughter, your son, what have you. You don't have to do it. I don't have to. Now I can talk about it to the world to say, hey, I want to be on the stage to talk about this so that it could impact or help someone else, empower someone else out there that, they went in, their daughter or son went into surgery and they did not survive. Okay? You can actually be clinically brain, non-functioning, but your heart's still beating. There are decisions that have to be made, all of these things, but it becomes very personal. So we just leave it there because, again, that's not the premise of this talk. The talk is really to get you to understand that, you hear both of us, maybe Coach Sarah on her platforms and what her talks are about, and transformation as a transformation coach, author, speaker, in Australia, very familiar with the UK, obviously, and all of your clients and people that, follow you and everything. A lot of them probably, maybe they didn't hear about this, or certain audiences, you can talk about it, you can bring it up. I like to, even from a coaching perspective, when we're talking about my career loss, I bring it up. I say, how do you know, Coach Toye, you've never lost a job? Excuse me? That's not true. So I'm always prepared to share my story about that. I tell people, and it was a lot, and it hurt. I had, one sneaker or tennis shoe, whatever you call it, I remember many years ago. And this is well after my daughter passed away. As a matter of fact, it was like 10 years after she passed. And I remember starting working in the financial services industry, big, huge financial services industry in downtown Boston. Okay, great. Money's good. The location was great. Fantastic. You dress up real nice. But all of this, and I was ready for an HR position, and I'll never forget it when you're talking about another loss. The day I was going into that job, before I left my home that day, I remember on the news they said, hey, this particular financial institution is merging with someone else, and there's going to be this huge layoff. They expect to have this huge layoff. Job loss, translation. And I said, are you kidding me? And my brain was going like a mile a minute, because I had just previously worked in a nonprofit for about 3 years, and the budget was cut. So I was in the job search, and then when I found one, I wasn't out of work long, and then when I found one, that was what my first day was like. So I was in a fog, because I walked into that building not knowing that I'm going to be on a chopping block, and I don't even know if it's 2 days, 90 days, what's going to happen. And all anyone wanted to talk about was about the merger and acquisition. So there were people laid off, but I was able to survive that for a good, year, just shy of over a year at that one place. But it felt terrible. It could almost make you sick. You're like, oh, I'm going here. Now I got to be out in the workplace. I have to look for another job. So people don't understand that we used to talk about the 5 stages of grief, you know? And it was 5 stages of grief. But then, and I remember talking about this one time too. Remember that book by Kubler Ross? I don't know if you're familiar with it,
Yeah.
but that was all about death and dying and different things. It's just amazingly. But I don't know why they put that in the college. I read that in college in one of my classes. But who knew that that book was going to help me understand what was going on? And I don't remember the exact name, but anyway, so these are things that happen. It could be a loss of a job. It's not comparing a loss of a child or your mom or your dad, a family member or a loved one. That's not, no, there's no comparison to one versus another. But what we do know, according to, again, psychologists and psychiatrists and medical professionals, they will tell you that the most traumatic loss is the loss of a child. So when we're walking, I have to walk with my head held high to understand that whatever I was able to do, I did. Whatever the family was able to do, we did. When it was no longer in our hands, then we knew we had to make all sorts of decisions, and we did. But the love and the loss, there's a two thing. You love something that you lost. Amazing. Some people still keep the anger, and it shows, because again, maybe you weren't dealing with that particular loss. It was just so, just not a good thing for you. But or you waited too long to get help, and now it festers inside. That's not good. So if you're out there, and I'm turning the floor over to Coach Sarah before we get out of here. I just want to tell you, if you're suffering from any kind of loss, whether it's a loss with grief and loss as it relates to someone you're related to, or friends or family, which we all may have to see that one day. Remember, you're not alone, and you have to deal with it the best way you can. But when you find yourself overwhelmed and anxiety kicks in, and it will, just make sure that you address it in that way. And if you're having issues in terms of job loss, that's something that I deal with, not because you just lost a job, but because I try to help you get back on track. That's the kind of coaching that I do, or talking if you have a group or something like that. I can speak to those things because it happened to me, and just give you some strategies to work your way around the loss of your job, career development, and so on and so forth. So I want to put that out there in case there's a group that might hear this or what have you. The floor, and I'm going to close us out, will be for Coach Sarah Willoughby of Australia. You've been listening to me. I'm Coach Toye Johnson-VINCENT, speaker, HR, podcast host of Speak to Me First podcast show. And, of course, we're on Instagram Live with Coach Sarah Willoughby of Australia. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I think the final thing I want to share is it's moment by moment awareness. And it's about understanding that life is all about duality. As our emotions, we can feel happy and sad at the same time. We can wake up feeling great, and then the next minute we're curled up on the floor in the fetal position crying. So it's a journey, and it's about being kind to yourself along the way, recognizing that, the relationship with yourself, as I mentioned before, is the most important one. Whatever you can do to support yourself, it's really important that you do that, so that you can deal with the challenges that all of us face in life, and they will be different for each of us. And also just find your tribe, surround yourself with people who can support you and raise you up even on your worst days, because being human is messy,
Yeah.
but it's also very, very beautiful. So I work with women to help them to reconnect with themselves and
Mm-hmm.
rediscover who they are. We often lose ourselves in some capacity as we go through life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about reconnection and coming back to our hearts. I hope today you have found something that has helped you to walk further on your own journey. And it's been an absolute pleasure to have this conversation with you. I've loved our chat. So thank you for the suggestion of doing this. And I can't wait to see what you get up to next on your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing too that I really love, and people like we may have said it in the beginning, but this is what we're talking about, people, in terms of being able to collaborate and networking. Because someone, and we're going to just give her a shout out, coach and speaker for Catherine. She goes by Kat. Chat with Kat is her podcast. Catherine Polsinelli, and she's doing pretty well. She was actually on my podcast show as a guest, and I loved it. So, last year. So again, she's the one that connected with us, and we connected on the professional website for LinkedIn. If you're looking to connect with either one of us, that's where you'll find me. I mean, someone said this to me. Another person was on my podcast show, and she mentioned LinkedIn was her playground, and I said, you know what? I'm going to say that. I remember now when you hear it, it came from you. And so she was awesome, awesome, awesome. But and Valencia Bennett, I believe that's her last name. And she mentioned about LinkedIn being her playground, and ever since it just resonated with me. So this playground can really work. So if you're looking or you want to schedule something, I offer the 30-minute complimentary coaching call. Again, regarding your career development to advance your career. Maybe you're sitting in that job. Perfect example, somebody sitting in their job for years and years and years. And no one, people are still coming in. You guys are coming in when we're going out, huh? But we appreciate you. And what happens is, regarding your career steps and strategies, it's not very clinical. I'm grassroots, and I get down with the very best, so we're good. Just let me know what you're looking to do, and then I give you some feedback, and we go from there. You go your way, I go my way. And then I just asked you to kind of circle back to let me know how you're doing, and if you want to actually work with me even further. Someone said, hello, Sarah and Toye. Who's that? Journey to Light? Let's see.
Yes, it's one of my beautiful people.
There's a Willoughby on there. Grief.
That's my daughter.
Okay, Grief Career Consulting. Okay, wait a minute. Is this Coach? Okay, Deborah Fry. Hey, Deborah, how are you? Hold on, let me see. Let's just make sure. Hello to everyone who has joined us. Please, 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 we encourage you to go back and listen to this Instagram and Facebook. I hope it's saying it's recording. I just don't know if you can see Sarah. I did forward everything. If anybody's on Facebook, let me know, please. I'll figure this out later. And then I'll try to share it on different platforms. But this has been great. We've been going now for about an hour and 3 minutes, and I wanted to make sure that they can reach you, Coach Sarah. You have a website that you can talk about, just tell people how to reach you, what platforms you're on, your handles, are they all the same on the platforms?
Sure. So sarahwilloughby.com is my website. You'll find everything you need there. I'm also on LinkedIn, Sarah Willoughby 2019, and Facebook and Instagram, Sarah Willoughby Australia. So basically search my name and you will find me.
She's everywhere. People. Don't you get it? Well, and I'm Toye JOHNSON-VINCENT, no sugarcoating coach, hashtag no sugarcoating coach, but at no sugarcoating coach on Instagram. You know that little @ sign? And of course, Toye JOHNSON-VINCENT on Facebook, both a profile and a page. But I do most of my really good work via LinkedIn. So again, if you are you have an event coming up, you're looking for a speaker, maybe it's a women's group, either one of us could be a good selection for that. But keep in mind, Coach Sarah Willoughby is in Australia, so you have to make sure you get the time right because that's important. So either we both showed up today, so we did it right. And also, if you have a conference coming up or an expo coming up, and whether it's international or in person or virtual, because I'm an accredited virtual presenter, so I just want to keep that out there. Again, happy graduation. There's graduation coming up, keynote speakers, whatever you need, even if it's a small certificate program. I'd be happy to speak to the graduates or celebration. But in light of what we talked about today, I'm going to leave you with this. First of all, my website is TJV Empowers You, the letter U.com. Again, TJV Empowers You, the letter U.com. And that is the letter U, not YOU.com. So you say, well, I tried to look at your website and I couldn't find it. That's not true. So make sure, or you can catch me on YouTube. Again, Toye Johnson-Vincent, or at No Sugarcoating Coach. I may be able to upload. If I can upload this, that would be fantastic. And then anything you have going on or coming up, I meant to ask you, Coach Sarah, in Australia, anything in events coming up that people can be invited to, whether it's virtual or not?
Just keep an eye out on my social media platforms for retreats. If you live in Melbourne, I am organising retreats at the moment, which is very exciting. And yeah, just follow me because there's things coming up every week, and I just follow my heart and go where my guidance takes me. So
okay. And the retreats, are they online, or do you go to an actual location?
We go to an actual location. So yes.
Wow.
I've got one coming up in May, beautiful Hepburn Springs, out in the country, and it's just the beginning of my journey with that. So I'm very excited, and I love bringing amazing women together and just sharing our hearts.
Well, I'm excited for you, and that we connected on a higher level. We just left LinkedIn and did our own thing. So hopefully, this sounds to me like a conference, coming up, because maybe, and what I've done in the past is had like a coach's corner, where I had invited other coaches and we did a Zoom and then we shared it out, and those kind of things. You can invite people to the Zoom. So to talk about different subjects, but that's the way the world goes. And again, you can't stay in one place. I say like this: if you're staying in one place for years and years and years and there's nothing happening, it may be time for you to check out a mentor or a coach. And on that note, again, I thank my co-host, Sarah Willoughby, Coach Sarah Willoughby. Now that name may be popular, Willoughby, so make sure that you'll see Sarah's pictures out there. It's who she is, not someone else. And I'm Toye Johnson-Vincent, No Sugarcoating Coach. I thank you everyone for joining, including Coach Sarah's family, her daughter, who joined and supported. Someone said, I'm looking forward to watching the replay. Let's see, who was that? Can you see that? The Journey to Light. Is that your daughter? No. Okay. Nope. Priestess Melissa, thank you so much for joining us today. I know somebody was going in and out. Australian Fertility Summit joined. Thank you so much. So your selfish coach, we just recently connected. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you watch all of it in its entirety. And someone did say originally good afternoon, and I think we said that was your selfish coach. I just love her title, your selfish coach. Believe me, folks, and it's not what you mean. You should check her out as well. Grief Consulting joined us. So I want to make sure that I just touch bases with all of those people. We enjoyed having you, but more important, I hope you gained a few nuggets from this very important topic today. And I'm Toye Johnson-Vincent, and we're going to end the broadcast, but not until we say one last thing. Success is in your future. All right. Bye for now. Thank you so much. Thank you, Coach Sarah.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
All right. We'll connect soon.
We will.
Bye now.